Hey, I'm Charles with Rocky Mountain. Today I'm going to show you guys how to install a Tusk Stage 3 upgrade kit on your Polaris General 1000. Now the Stage 3 kit comes with some of our best selling accessories for your side-by-side. Those are going to give you a better overall riding experience and more comfort while you're out on the trail. Not only that, but they're going to help your new machine look good and stand out. So what comes in the kit is the folding glass windshield, your pivot folding mirrors with A-pillar mounts, the profile aluminum roof, the Polycarb rear window, and the cargo rack. So those are the items that come in the kit. Let me show you how to get them installed. To start things out, we're going to install the roof. Now, to get this done, we've got 2 bolts on the top of our visor. We're going to remove both of those bolts, and we're using a T40 Torx bit to do that. And there's also some barrel nuts underneath. We're going to pull those out as well. And with those barrel nuts removed, we're going to install the M6 barrel nuts that came in our kit. Next, we're going to prep our roof. So I've got this on a blanket so we don't scratch it up. And then we've got this foam tape. We're going to go around 3 of the outer edges with the foam tape. So this is the underside of the roof. We're going to start on the sides right next to this bend all the way to the back. Then we'll remove the backing and press it down into place. Then we'll do the same thing across the back and the other side. Now that we have that tape installed, we're going to set the roof on top of the machine. And with this hardware, make sure you get the washer installed first. That goes on the outside of the roof. And then we have the spacer underneath in between the stock visor and the roof. Next, I'm going to install the 4 roll cage brackets. We're going to use the remaining M6 bolts and the washers. And again, the washer is going to go on the outside of the roof. Next, we'll take the 2 M8 bolts and the washers. We're going to stick those through the front of the roof, through that stock visor, and then we're going to put the nylock nuts on the back side. Now I'm going to adjust the roof for optimal fit, both side to side and front to back, and then go through and tighten down all of the hardware. Next, I'm going to install the rear window. I'm going to remove the protective cover from both sides. So we've got the thicker foam tape and the thinner foam tape. We're going to use the thicker foam tape to go around the outside edge of the rear window. And the way I have this is the Tusk logo is still going to be facing outside of the machine. Now for the filler panel, we have this edge facing up, and we're going to go along the 2 sides and the top with this thinner foam tape. Then I'm going to flip the filler panel over. We're going to put 1 strip of foam tape right behind these holes right here. Now we can set the filler panel onto the machine. So to do that, this foam tape on this edge right here, this is going to go against the bottom edge of the cab. So I'll roll that into place, and then we have the bracket with the 2 bolt holes, and we're going to run 2 bolts through the filler panel into those holes. And to get these bolts in, you can move the filler panel side to side, wherever it needs to be. These are going to tap right into that pre-drilled hole in the frame. Now for the bottom, what we need to do is put a rag between the bed and the filler panel. That's going to push it forward enough that when you use your cargo bed, it's not going to interfere with the filler panel. Once you've done that, we can move to the cab and remove the seats. Now that we have the seats out, you just want to double check the fitment of the filler panel, make sure everything looks like it's lined up correctly. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and tighten down this top hardware, and then we'll take our 21/64 inch drill bit, and we're going to drill through that center hole in the front. Once you have that drilled out, blow it off and install your push pin. Once you have that center one done, you can go ahead and one at a time, we're going to drill out the remaining 3 holes and put the push pins in. Now before we set the rear window in place, we're going to use these self tappers to create some threads in the 2 upper holes in that roll cage. That's just going to make the next step easier. Now I'm going to have a friend help me set the rear window in place. And we're going to start by installing self-tappers in the upper two corners. Then we can install the brackets. We got two different styles that came in the kit. So this style right here, this is going to go across the bottom. There should be 3 of them. And then we've got the different style that's going to go in the middle on the top. And all this hardware is going to be left loose so we can make some adjustments. Now with everything loosely installed, we're going to go ahead and adjust the rear window for optimal fitment, and then we're going to tighten down all the hardware. So when we do that, just keep in mind you don't want to over tighten these screws, because if you do, they're going to crack the rear window. Moving on to the windshield. We need to prep the windshield before we install it. So we've laid out the bulb seal where it goes. You've got the long piece going around the sides and the top on the inside. And then you've got the shorter pieces across the bottom, the 2 shortest ones on the outside, just inside of that, some that are in between, and then the longest piece is going to go right in the middle. Now when you install this stuff, if it doesn't fit on there tight, you can always pinch this together and press it on. That should give you a tighter fit. And as we press this on, you'll notice that bulb seal is going to be facing in towards the cab. Next, we need to set up the levers for our door vents. So we've got 2 bolts already going through this hinge right here on each side of the windshield. These are in there just for shipping purposes. So we're actually going to take those off and reuse them. We're going to install the button head side of the bolt going through the top, coming down, then install the nut plate bracket and put the nylock nuts on the back. And as we go together, we're just going to leave all this hardware a little loose so we can make adjustments. Next, we're going to install the hinge mount, and we're going to use 2 of the shorter bolts that come in the kit along with 2 nylock nuts. After that, we'll install the hinge lever. Again, one of the shorter bolts will go through that hinge mount, through the lever, and the nylock nut on the back side. We're going to take a friction washer. We'll put it on the opposite side of that lever and then go through the nut plate. Once you have all that loosely installed, you can make your adjustments and tighten down all the hardware. And with this lever, you don't want this pivot bolt to be too tight, so I just barely seated it and then backed it off about 1/8 of a turn. Once you have all of the hardware tightened down, you want to go ahead and make sure the door vent opens up and then do the same steps on the other side. Now over at the machine, we need to prep it for both the windshield and the mirrors. We're going to have to do those at the same time. So first thing we're going to do is remove the stock A-pillar bolts on both sides, and we're not going to reuse these stock bolts. Now there's a couple nylock nuts on the back side, and to help keep us from dropping those down where we can't reach them, I'm just going to put a piece of tape behind there, and it's going to help hold those in place. This is painter's tape, so it's going to be really easy to get that back off. Then we can take our 15mm socket and remove these. So you can see the roll cage is starting to separate just a little bit right there. So I'm going to use an alignment punch. I'm going to move that roll cage. That's going to allow me to remove that bolt completely. The next thing we're going to look at is the brackets. Now, each item in the kit is made so it can be ran by itself or with other parts. So with this, keep in mind, our folding windshield, it came with a bracket that normally would go behind our windshield mount. But we're not going to be using that. We're going to be using a mirror mount underneath that. And again, we're not reusing those stock bolts that came in the A-pillar. You've got 4 longer bolts that come in the windshield kit and the mirror kit. Those bolts are going to be the exact same. Just make sure you grab those and put a washer on each of them. And make sure you have the brackets in the same orientation we have right here. So this is for obviously the passenger side. So once you have that bolt through the top, for us it's going to be easiest to remove this alignment punch. We're going to stick that through both of these holes, then into the roll cage, get all this stuff lined up. And we're going to leave these loose for now. We're going to make adjustments later on and then tighten everything down. So now we can remove the tape and do those same steps on the other side. Now that we have those A-pillar brackets installed, we're going to install the top brackets. So across the top of the roll cage, there's 2 brackets that are actually welded right onto it. And inside each of those brackets, there's going to be 2 dimples. And we're going to use the drill bit that came with that rear window to drill those out. It should be a 21/64 inch drill bit. Now we're going to take the 4 button head bolts that are M8 by 20 millimeters long. We'll install a washer onto them, and we're going to put those through those 4 holes we just drilled. Then we'll set the mounting bracket in place and put the 2 nuts on the back side. And all this hardware, we're going to leave it loose for now until we have everything mounted up. Now we're going to take the threaded spacer and the M8 by 16 millimeter button head bolt. We're going to thread that through the bottom of the bracket. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Once you've done that, you can have a friend help you set the windshield in place, and then we're going to use the 4 remaining M8 by 16 millimeter bolts. We'll go through the windshield frame, through those mounts, and then we've got the nuts on the back. Next, we're going to take the knobs that come in the kit. We're going to thread those into the threaded spacers. Now, while all the hardware is still loose, you're going to need to mount up both mirrors. That's going to allow you to get the bolt that goes in the end of the mirror through its bracket. So we'll start by inserting that bolt, then we have the star washer, and then for the mirror, just make sure you have the logo in the correct orientation for each side. And we'll go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Now, once you have these mirrors installed, we're going to go through and start tightening down the hardware. We're going to start with the A-pillar mounts, then we're going to start with the lower mounts on the windshield, and then move up to the upper mounts. Next, we're going to install the hood standoff. So to do that, this rubber pad is going to be facing towards the back of the machine. So keep that in mind when you install this, but we're going to set those in place, and we're going to use those knobs to screw in from the back side and kind of hold this in place. We'll let this rock forward. I'm going to try to center up this knob in the notch in this windshield. And then we're going to mark those 3 holes for our mounting locations. And we'll fold the windshield back up. We're going to drill out those 3 holes with our 3/8 inch drill bit. Now we can lower the windshield back down, and we're going to install the nut plates on the back side, as well as the top one. It's just going to have that bolt going straight through M6 by 20, and we've got the washer and the nylock nut on the back side. Next thing I'm going to do is install our windshield wiper. So for the wiper, there's 3 different mounting locations. Typically, you're either going to have it in the driver's spot or right in the middle, or if you want to run 2, you can have 1 on each side. So we're going to put ours on the driver's side. So I'm going to fold the windshield down, and to remove that plastic button, there's a couple tabs on the back. You can just press in on those with some pliers, remove it. Next thing I'm going to do is remove this protective cover from the wiper, and then we've got 2 tabs on each side of the wiper. We're going to press in on those and pull up on the plastic cover. Once you've done that, you can take the wiper arm, slide it through that cover, hook it onto the wiper, pop the cover back into place, and then for the wiper mount and handle, we're going to remove the smaller nut from the end, take out the handle, and then we're going to remove one of these larger nuts, a washer, and a grommet. We'll set that through the back side of the windshield, reinstall the grommet, washer, and bigger nut. And then we're just going to use 2 17 millimeter wrenches to snug those nuts down. Now we're going to install the wiper handle through the back side of the mount, and we'll install the wiper blade onto it. Now the wiper arm, that's going to line up with the wiper handle, and then just make sure it's fully seated on those splines, and then we'll install that smaller nut. And we're just using a 10 millimeter socket to tighten that nut down. After that, we'll press down on the plastic cover. Next, we'll move on to the cargo rack. So with this rack, it's pretty simple to install. First thing we're going to do is attach the sides to it. So this triangle piece, this is going to be facing the back, and then these tabs will be facing in. So we've got the right one set in place. I'm going to take 3 of these smaller Allen head bolts. And we're just going to loosely install these into the 3 mounting locations. Then we'll attach the left side bracket. Next, we're going to install the left and right gusset brackets using the remaining 4 shorter bolts. When you install these, the 3 holes are going to be facing the top, and there's only one way they can go. If the bracket is trying to face out this way, then you know it's for the other side. Next, we'll flip the cargo rack over, and we're going to take these 4 longer bolts. We'll put one of the flat washers on them. We'll go through this hole in the corner. We've got a plastic spacer, another flat washer, and a nylock nut. And the wrench and socket for this stuff is going to be 9/16. And then once you make contact with that nut on the washer, we're just barely going to snug it up a little bit from there. You don't want to break this plastic piece, so we'll do the same steps on the remaining 3 locations. The next thing you want to do is lift up the bed. Then we'll use our T40 Torx bit and remove the screw from the front of the plastic, and we're going to remove this side panel. We'll do the same thing on the other side and then lower the bed. With the bed down, we're ready to install the cargo rack. So these 4 spacers, they're going to go into the holes that already exist in the bed. Then starting out on the passenger side, we're going to install a fender washer right underneath those spacers on that bolt going all the way through. And then we've got the nylock nut we're going to install. Next, we're going to use our 9/16 inch socket and tighten that down. Just make sure you don't over tighten it and crack the plastic. And we'll do the same steps on the other side. After that, we'll tip the cargo bed back, and we're going to put the fender washer and the 2 nylock nuts on each of the bolts going through the front. It's kind of hard to see, but just going to have to reach up in there. Once you have those tightened down, you can reinstall your side panels, set the cargo bed down. The last thing we need to do is take the supplied Loctite. We're going to remove the 10 button head bolts one at a time and apply some Loctite to them. Make any final adjustments to the rack. Tighten all the hardware down. And that's how you install the Tusk Stage 3 Upgrade Kit on your Polaris General 1000. Now, if you have any questions about the install process, leave those questions down in the comments below. And if you need this kit, it's available on our website. We also have other accessories on there, so be sure to check that out and subscribe to our channel for more helpful content. I'm Charles with Rocky Mountain. Thanks for watching.